For the first time in Africa's history, the unthinkable happened. CEOs of powerful foreign mining companies were arrested. Not one, not two, all of them, on the same day, at the exact same time. And the man behind this bold, history-making move? Ibrahim Traoré, the fearless leader of Burkina Faso. So how did the bosses of some of the world's biggest mining empires end up in handcuffs in a country they once exploited without a second thought? How did a decades-long system of corruption and resource theft fall apart overnight? If you're into untold stories that challenge power and rewrite history, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. We've got more coming from the heart of Africa. Let's rewind to 6 a.m., March 15, in the capital city of Ouagadougou. While the city was just waking up, 7 high-level mining executives were getting surprise visits from special forces at their 5-star hotel rooms. One of them, Victor Petro, CEO of Goldmax Corporation, one of the biggest gold companies on the planet. Also caught in the sweep was Jean-Claude Dubois, head of Canadian Western Gold Mining, and Michael Thompson from Australian Pacific Resources. But this wasn't random. It wasn't a lucky break. This was a calculated strike. Months in the making, Traoré had quietly launched a deep investigation into every single mining operation inside Burkina Faso. He brought in international legal experts and began building airtight criminal cases, brick by brick. What they uncovered was jaw-dropping. Over 50 years, mining companies had pulled an estimated $500 billion worth of gold from Burkina Faso. But guess how much actually made it into the country's treasury? A mere $10 billion. For half a year, Traoré's team operated in total secrecy. They embedded informants at mining sites, flew drones to gather aerial evidence, analyzed satellite data, and cross-checked production numbers. The truth? Shocking. These companies were officially reporting only 1/10 of what they were actually digging up and shipping out.
Traoré didn't hold back.
He put it plainly, gold taken from our land, dug out by the blood and sweat of our people, is filling vaults in Europe. Meanwhile, my people are starving. This ends now. And with that declaration, the era of silent exploitation came crashing down. His message to the mining giants? Simple and chilling. Give back what you stole or rot in prison for life. The arrests weren't just swift, they were dramatic. Victor Petro tried to call in his private security detail, but Burkina Faso's special forces were already 10 steps ahead. They'd secured the entire hotel before he even got out of bed. He was dragged out in his pajamas and hauled straight to a maximum security prison. Jean-Claude Dubois of Western Gold Mining thought he could make a clean escape. His private jet was already on standby at the airport, but Traoré had shut down the entire airspace. Borders sealed, game over. Dubois was intercepted mid-getaway and taken into custody on the spot. Michael Thompson from Australian Pacific Resources. He was caught red-handed in a hotel conference room. Laptop open, fingers flying, trying to move company assets out of Burkina Faso in real time. Too late. His laptop became Exhibit A in a court of law. None of this happened by chance. Long before the arrests, Traoré demanded that every mining company turn over their financial records from the past 10 years. Then he assembled a team of financial experts and legal analysts who combed through every line for months. What they uncovered was staggering. Take Goldmax Corporation. In 2019 alone, they pulled $500 million worth of gold from the Topico mine. But guess how much they paid in taxes? Just $5 million. Why? Because they lied. Big time. They were actually extracting 10 tons of gold a day, but only reporting 1 ton. That means 9 tons of gold every single day just vanished into the shadows. Western gold mining had a different scheme. They cooked the books with fake invoices, showing bars of gold worth $60,000 as being sold for just $10,000. The rest disappeared into secret offshore accounts. And then there was Pacific Resources, whose scam was even wilder. They didn't just lie on the books, they weaponized the workers' own paychecks. On paper, these miners were earning 10 times more than what actually hit their bank accounts. Why? So the companies could claim massive tax deductions on fake wages, then pocket the difference. It was theft in broad daylight, hiding behind paperwork. But Traoré wasn't buying it. He combed through every document, line by line, page by page. He didn't just read them. He marked them, stamped them, filed them. Each one became a bulletproof piece of evidence in a growing criminal case. And then came the bombshell, buried not in financial statements, but in secret handshake deals made behind closed doors. It turns out the rot ran deeper than anyone imagined. Back in 2015, then Energy Minister Mark Carber took a staggering $50 million bribe from Goldmax Corporation. In return, he slashed the company's tax rate from 30% to a laughable 3%. That one dirty deal alone was costing Burkina Faso $2 billion a year. Western gold mining didn't just play dirty, they went nuclear. In 2017, they handed over $100 million in bribes to Francois Carbor, the brother of then-President Ro Carbor. Their reward? 3 shiny new mining licenses on land that belonged to local villagers. What followed was devastating. 50,000 people, families, farmers, entire communities were forced off their land to make room for foreign mining operations. Their homes, gone. Their fields, bulldozed. So let's pause right here. If that was your home, your farm, your land for generations, what would justice look like to you? If you stand with Traoré and the people of Burkina Faso, drop an Amen in the comments. Let your voice be part of this story.
Traoré had seen enough.
He took every piece of evidence, bank records, fake contracts, satellite images, and secret deals, and built a case so strong it landed straight at the International Criminal Court. The accusations? Crimes against humanity, forced displacement, child labor, and reckless environmental destruction. The court didn't just listen, they accepted the charges. Then came Traoré's boldest move yet. He froze every mining company's bank account, seized all their local assets, and with one sweeping order, he placed every ounce of gold under state control. Just like that, $100 billion in gold no longer belonged to foreign companies, it now officially belonged to the people of Burkina Faso. The world reacted fast. Headlines exploded. Western media called him a dictator. The European Union scrambled for emergency meetings. The US issued stern warnings and thinly veiled threats. But Traoré didn't blink. "We're not breaking the law," he said. "We're enforcing it. For 50 years, these companies looted our land, dodged taxes, destroyed lives. Now, it's payback time." And the people, they stood with him. The streets of Ouagadougou filled with hundreds of thousands. People raised banners that read, "Our gold is ours." For villagers near the mines, it was like the first rays of dawn after a lifetime of darkness. One man, 65-year-old Amadou Sawado, stepped in front of the cameras, tears rolling down his weathered face. "I've worked in these mines for over 40 years," he said, his voice shaking. "Europe got rich from the gold I helped dig up, but my children still can't afford school. Finally, someone's standing up for us." Meanwhile, the arrested CEOs were adjusting to a very different kind of life. No private jets, no champagne suites, just the heat and concrete of Burkina Faso's toughest prisons. Victor Petrov, head of Goldmax, went on a hunger strike his very first day behind bars. Traoré's response? Calm, cold, honest. "Our mine workers go hungry every day," he said. "Maybe now you'll understand what that feels like." Jean-Claude Dubois, the CEO of Western Gold, tried to buy his way out. Through his legal team, he offered a jaw-dropping $1 billion in bail money. But Traoré didn't flinch. In fact, he laughed. "$1 billion," he said. "That's pocket change compared to the $500 billion you already looted from our land. And let's be real, that money, it was ours to begin with." Then there was Michael Thompson, who went for the drama card. One day in prison, he suddenly collapsed in the hallway, claiming he was having a heart attack. But Traoré wasn't leaving anything to chance. He sent in his own doctors, not affiliated with the prison, not influenced by bribes. Their verdict? Thompson was perfectly healthy, no cardiac issues at all. What was meant to be a slick escape turned into evidence of obstruction, used right against him in court. And the list of detainees kept growing. Robert Mackenzie, head of Continental Gold, charged with forcibly displacing entire communities from ancestral lands. James Harrison of African Minerals, accused of using child labor. Kids as young as 10 years old in dangerous mining operation. Peter Williams, Global Mining Co-op, held responsible for widespread environmental destruction that left entire regions poisoned. And David Anderson from Summit Resources was linked to financing armed militant groups operating near mine sites. Then came the moment the world had been waiting for. The trials. The international spotlight beamed down on Burkina Faso. Cameras rolled. Every major outlet tuned in. What Traoré did next shocked everyone. He didn't turn to foreign courts or Western-controlled tribunals. Instead, he created a special independent court built for this very moment. Its judges? 3 from Africa, 2 from Asia, 2 from Latin America. No American judge, no European judge, no corporate strings attached. The message was clear. This time, justice wouldn't wear a Western suit. This was a new chapter, not just for Burkina Faso, but for the global South. And the world couldn't look away. From the moment the courtroom doors opened, you could feel the weight in the air. At the very first hearing, the lead prosecutor stepped forward, eyes sharp, voice steady, and began reading out the charges. Not just one list. Each mining executive had their own thick stack of legal files, page after page of crimes against a nation. Victor Petro, CEO of Goldmax, was hit with a staggering 234 charges. Tax evasion, bribery, environmental destruction, forcing entire communities off their land. Then came Jean-Claude Dubois of Western Gold Mining. 189 criminal counts, but one stood out above the rest: child labor. It wasn't speculation, it wasn't rumor, it was proven in court. Kids as young as 12 were being forced to work in deep, airless tunnels, 16 hours a day. No sunlight, no fresh air. And most didn't live past age 15, their lungs shredded by toxic dust, gone before they ever had a chance. But perhaps the darkest revelations came when the charges against Michael Thompson of Pacific Resources were read. He was accused of poisoning entire communities. Thompson's mining operations had dumped cyanide into rivers, the very water people drank, bathed in, cooked with. The result? 3 rivers contaminated 17 villages, infected cancer, rates skyrocketed, more than 2,000 deaths, and now the survivors were speaking, under oath, on record, in tears. They weren't just statistics, they had names, faces, families. Musa Oruhugo, once a bright-eyed boy who started working the mines at just 8 years old, now sat before the court at 23, struggling to breathe. "They stole my childhood," he said, voice shaking. "They stole my health, my strength, my entire future." Then came Mariam Cow, a 70-year-old woman from a village that no longer exists. She stood, scarf wrapped tightly around her head, hands trembling as she recalled the day her home was taken. "Our ancestors are buried on that land," she whispered. "They didn't just move us, they erased us, bulldozed our homes for gold." She paused, eyes wet. "And what did we get?" $100, her voice cracked. "Just 100 for everything." All while the gold ripped from their soil brought in billions. Through it all, Traoré never flinched. Day after day, he walked into that courtroom, not tucked away in some private office or watching behind glass. He stood tall, in full view, shoulder to shoulder with his people. He listened to every word. He met the eyes of the accused without blinking. One morning, as the press gathered outside the courthouse, Traoré stepped into the light and said something that would echo far beyond Burkina Faso. "This isn't just our fight. This is Africa's fight. If we hold the line, if we don't back down, then other nations will find their courage too." And he was right. That spark turned into a wildfire. In Mali, Amy Goa launched official probes into foreign mining firms. In Guinea, Madi Doya began tearing into old contracts. And in Niger, Abdul Rahman Chiani outright cancelled multiple long-standing mining deals. Like dominoes, the old power structures began to fall. The once untouchable Western mining companies were suddenly on the ropes. Boardrooms went into chaos. Stock markets reacted fast. Goldmax Corp lost over 70% of its value overnight. Western gold mining teetered on bankruptcy. Pacific Resources had to shut down all operations across the entire African continent. The panic wasn't just in Africa. It raced across London, Paris, and Brussels. Behind closed doors, officials were holding emergency meetings. The air in European capitals grew tense. And then came the threats. French President Emmanuel Macron stepped in with a public warning, aimed straight at Traoré. "You'll pay for this," Macron declared. "You don't touch our investors." But Traoré had already made it clear. He wasn't here to protect foreign profits. He was here to protect his people. But Traoré didn't flinch. His answer? Bold, unfiltered. "Call them what they are," he said. "Colonizers, not investors." He continued, "We welcome real partners, but we've had enough of crooks in suits pretending to bring opportunity while stealing everything in sight." That didn't sit well with Washington. President Biden responded with threats, sanctions, financial pressure, and promises to cut off U.S. aid to Burkina Faso. Traoré didn't miss a beat. He actually laughed. "Which aid?" he asked. "The $100 million you give us each year? We'll be making $10 billion annually from our own gold mines now. Keep your money. Hand it out to your puppet regimes instead." Inside the courtroom, the mask kept slipping. As investigators dug deeper, email evidence from seized company laptops started to show the true mindset of these mining executives. At Goldmax, one executive casually referred to Burkina Faso's people as stupid natives. Another wrote, "We control them with just a few million in bribes. They dance for dollars." Western gold mining? Even darker. In an internal message, a senior exec described child workers as cheap labor. "Why pay $100 to one adult," wrote CEO Dubois, "when you can pay $10 each to 10 kids? And the best part? They never complain." At Pacific Resources, memos laid out a deliberate strategy to dump cyanide waste into rivers, on purpose. "No one's going to notice," one document read. "They don't live long anyway. Even if they get cancer, they won't know who to blame." It wasn't just greed, it was contempt. At Continental Gold, Robert Mackenzie called the forced removal of entire villages a necessary sacrifice for progress. At African Minerals, James Harrison dismissed worker deaths in collapsed tunnels as acceptable losses. And perhaps most chilling of all, at Global Mining Co-op, Peter Williams waved off the mass destruction of ecosystems with this line: "Nature will fix itself eventually." Traoré sat at his desk, reading page after page. His hands trembled as he flipped through the damning files, but he didn't shout. He didn't lose control. Instead, he slowly closed the folder, looked up with steady eyes, and said, "Now you see, this is what they think of us. To them, we're disposable. But that game ends today." The trial stretched into its 6th month. The world was watching. In the courtroom, the silence was so deep it felt heavy. But under that stillness, the air practically pulsed with history in the making. Then came the verdict, one by one. Guilty. Viktor Petrov, CEO of Goldmax, was sentenced to 50 years in prison and ordered to pay $10 billion in fines. Jean-Claude Dubois of Western Gold, 45 years behind bars and $8 billion in penalties. Michael Thompson from Pacific Resources, life in prison, no parole, for environmental crimes that poisoned rivers and killed thousands. Robert Mackenzie, Continental Gold, 40 years for forcibly evicting entire communities. James Harrison, African Minerals, 55 years for exploiting child labor in brutal, deadly conditions. Peter Williams, Global Mining Co-op, 60 years for destroying ecosystems and causing mass death. David Anderson, Summit Resources, life without parole for funding armed rebel groups that terrorized civilians. But it didn't stop there. The court delivered one final blow. Every CEO's personal fortune would be stripped away. Their yachts, private jets, vacation estates, art collections, even their Swiss bank accounts, all seized. And then came the twist no one expected. The court ordered that the money from selling these assets would go directly to the victims' families, the miners, the displaced, the poisoned. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, and then Traoré stepped out into the sunlight. Standing before the cameras, his voice calm but electric, he delivered words that would echo around the globe. "Today, we didn't just hold 7 men accountable, we put 500 years of colonial exploitation on trial. And we won. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a new era for Africa. From now on," Traoré declared, "our people, the true owners of this land and its riches, will finally thrive." But he wasn't done. Not even close. He moved fast. Every remaining asset held by foreign mining giants, seized, frozen, reclaimed. No more loopholes, no more backdoors. Then came the announcement that changed everything. The launch of the Burkina Faso National Mining Company. A fully state-run enterprise by the people for the people. And Traoré made it clear where the money was going. 70% of all profits would fund schools, hospitals and roads, not in some distant future, now. And the impact? It was instant. In towns that once had nothing but dust and danger, clinics began to rise, schools opened their doors. Miners who used to barely survive on scraps were now earning 10 times their old wages. Child labor? Outlawed permanently, no exceptions. New safety equipment was rolled out across every site. No more deadly shortcuts, no more lives thrown away for profit. The The streets were alive with joy. Children ran through villages, shouting his name. Elders lifted their fists in the air. Women wept and danced at the same time. "He brought back our gold," they sang. "Traoré is one of us." Village festivals returned, not as distractions from pain, but as celebrations of real progress. For the first time in generations, people didn't look ahead with fear. They looked ahead with hope. Sure, Western media tried to paint him as a tyrant. They called him a populist, a threat, a strongman. But on the ground, the truth was louder than any headline. Burkina Faso's economy was taking off. Jobs were growing, poverty was falling, fast. And in classrooms and clinics across the country, a quiet miracle was unfolding. The numbers told a new story, and that story was just beginning.
In just the first year after taking control of its mining revenues,
Burkina Faso's national income skyrocketed by an astonishing 300%. The country built 500 brand new schools and opened 200 hospitals, places that had been desperately needed for decades. Over 5,000 kilometers of paved roads sprang up where there had once been nothing but dirt paths. Electricity reached more than 2,000 villages that had been living in total darkness. And for the first time in generations, clean, safe drinking water flowed to over 3 million people. The lives of miners, once overlooked and forgotten, transformed overnight. Minimum wages jumped from just $50 a month to $500, a tenfold increase. Every worker got national health insurance. Workplace safety, it was finally enforced, meeting the same standards you'd find in Europe. The most incredible result? Fatal accidents in the mines dropped to zero. But the revolution didn't stop there. Technical universities were opened in every mining region, so young people could stay close to home and train to become engineers, geologists, or chemists without having to leave the country. Over 10,000 students were enrolled, all fully funded with scholarships. And this wave of change wasn't just local, it spread like wildfire across Africa. In Mali, 5 mining CEOs were arrested. Guinea nationalized its bauxite mines. Niger took full control of uranium extraction. A new breeze of change was sweeping across the continent. Africa was waking up. At a massive rally in the capital, with thousands gathered, Traoré spoke with quiet strength. "We're not enemies of anyone," he said. "Our door is wide open to any nation that wants fair, honest trade." Then he looked out over the crowd and added, "But the era of exploitation is over. Africa's resources belong to the African people." It really was that simple. While the people flourished, the arrested CEOs rotted away in prison cells, forgotten by the empires they once ruled. Their companies crumbled one after another. Goldmax Corporation collapsed completely. Western gold mining was bought out by a tiny, unknown firm. Pacific Resources was dismantled and sold off piece by piece to pay its debts. What Traoré did wasn't just news, it was history. For the very first time, an African leader stood his ground, unshaken, relentless, fighting back against Western exploitation and actually winning. From that moment on, everything changed. The people of Burkina Faso weren't just watching from the sidelines anymore, they were living the change. Their gold wasn't disappearing into foreign vaults, it was building schools in their villages, hospitals in their towns, and roads cutting through their mountains. Kids weren't choking on dust deep inside dangerous mines. They were reading books, kicking soccer balls, and dreaming bigger than ever before. Workers weren't scraping by, they were earning enough to build homes, feed their families, and live with real dignity. Traoré's fight didn't stop at Burkina Faso's borders. It spread across oceans, inspiring people in Latin America, Asia, everywhere injustice had taken root. Movements rose, flags went up, and voices that had been silenced for too long began to speak out. Slowly but surely, Traoré's belief proved true. Justice always finds a way. Sometimes it comes late, sometimes it comes loud, but it comes. That old system, built on stolen wealth and quiet violence, couldn't hold forever. Africa stood tall. This time, no one would steal its resources again. Because the people were awake, because leaders like Traoré existed, because everything had changed. But this story isn't over. Traoré's fight goes on. Every day, he wakes up and takes one more step toward a freer continent. One more step for dignity. One more step for sovereignty. And one day soon, all of Africa will be truly free. Its riches won't just be signatures on foreign contracts, they'll be the birthright of its children. That day isn't far off, because Traoré showed the way, and now the people are following. Has this story touched you? If it has, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell us how you feel. If you believe in justice, dignity, and a rising Africa, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to stay with us on this journey. We'll see you in the next story, where truth keeps rising.